The Truth Girls.
Hi everyone, it's Sonia here. I've got some really important information for you today. You're going to want to see this. If you've been looking for proof that what's going on in the US right now is part of a leftist plot to overthrow Trump, I'm here to tell you that I have the proof that you were right. I'm going to show you a document which is basically a leftist manifesto outlining exactly what their plans are and how everybody is being played. So I'm going to show you these documents. Now, not to say that everything is going on is just a leftist plot, but there's definitely a leftist plot involved. And there's proof now. And before I start, I just want to remind you, please like me on Facebook so you can follow the news that I'm checking out. Thanks for subbing to my backup channel, Truth or Girls TV. Thank you so much for your support on Patreon. Also, if you're looking to get rid of odors in maybe your car or in your house, I still have available the pouches and the tabs, which are 15% off, no shipping and handling, even if you live in Canada. If you're interested about how these get rid of odors, please click the link below for more info. Also, one more thing, if you're looking for prepper food MREs to stock up for what might be coming next, My Patriot Supply are the go-to experts in emergency preparedness. Right now, you can save up to $100 off a 4-week supply of their delicious and nutritious food that lasts up to 25 years. Don't let yourself get caught unprepared, not when you can get a 4-week supply of emergency food shipped right to your doorstep. Go to preparewithtruthorgirls.com right now. That's preparewithtruthorgirls.com. So please click the link below for more info on that too. Just a little heads up here before I get into it. Alternate reading of mind calendar suggests the end of the world is next week. So everything I say in this video, it might not apply because we might not be here. Yeah, apparently we're all gonna die again. Yeah, apparently they got it wrong and 2012 wasn't 2012. 2012 was 2020. It sure looks like it. If ever there was a year that really looked like it was going to be the end of the world, it's 2020. So maybe they got it right this time, but probably not. So here is what's really interesting. I have come across a document called Resistance Guide. Paul Engler and Sophie Lassoff in collaboration with Momentum, and I'll tell you more about Momentum in a minute. This is the handbook for how the leftists actually literally want to overthrow the Republicans and get Trump out of office and get the Democrat Party back in office. I could say a lot about how that is not going to solve America's problem. Even if you're a leftist and you think that's going to fix everything, it's really not. The problems are so much deeper than like which party is in power at the time. They've both historically been involved in creating and perpetuating all the problems that you have right now. So I think the leftists are a bit misguided. But anyhow, here's what they say. Social movements of the past can teach us how to shape the future. This guide will equip you with the essential strategies to shift public opinion, change laws and decisions, and elect new leaders. Right, like that's going to fix everything. A handbook for anyone who wants to understand what makes movements succeed and how we can use this knowledge to fight for a better America. Okay, you got to hear this little statement they have. So they have their table of contents here. Here we go. Do you want to be a part of a successful effort to defeat the Trump agenda? Keep in mind, this document was made in 2017. So it's not like something they just threw together right now. And probably they'd been working on it obviously since before that. Probably, you know, as soon as he got elected. And even before. Do you want to join a group or form your own and maximize your group's effectiveness? Do you want to know how your group's efforts can fit in with a larger movement for social justice? Then this guide is for you. Read it, use it, share it. Together we can win. Yeah, it says right here, page 6, Trump is the president. Republicans run our government. How do we fight back? Oh, here's the problem. The GOP controls the House and the Senate. A conservative majority presides over the Supreme Court. the product of a successful power grab in which Republicans stonewalled President Obama's nominee in 2016. On the state level, Republicans hold 33 out of 50 governorships and control 32 state legislatures. So yeah, the leftists really hate that. And I just want to say, like, on a personal note, I took a quiz once online because I wasn't really sure where I fall in the political continuum. And apparently I'm a left-leaning libertarian. Okay, I'm a libertarian in the sense of less government intervention, more personal freedoms. I'm basically very much for personal freedom. Not this kind of leftist, though, I'll tell you that. So then they explain, what can we do? This is a winnable fight, they say. Resistance is already working. As we'll discuss in greater detail throughout this guide, creative mass protest has already derailed the agenda of Trump and the Republican Congress on multiple fronts. Trump failed to win the post-inaugural approval ratings bump that every other modern president has enjoyed, thanks in large part to the millions who flooded the streets around the country the day after the inauguration. Yeah, remember, it was like right from the beginning they were smearing him and protesting. So now we know, who was behind it. After Trump attempted to introduce a discriminatory travel ban, mass protests at more than a dozen international airports galvanized thousands against the policy, even though it had been framed in the traditionally unassailable language of national security. Yeah, I remember the travel ban, and I think that even without the protests, it could have been challenged on a legal level, which it would have been. But they certainly used the opportunity to make Trump look like the worst person on the planet. For some reason, everyone seemed to conveniently forget that it was the Obama administration that laid the groundwork for this travel ban in the first place. So then they have more about who we are. This guide was authored by the leaders of Momentum, a training institute and movement incubator. We study what makes or breaks social movements. They're professionals. And we teach people how to incorporate the best techniques and strategies of protest into their ongoing work for social justice. Momentum has trained hundreds of grassroots leaders in dozens of organizations throughout the United States and internationally. We invite you to sign up for a training with the Momentum Institute to learn how to put the work of this guide into practice. Beyond the status quo, for too long the leadership of the Democratic Party has sought empty compromise positions that claim the broadest possible appeal without upsetting big donors. The only way to defeat the Trump GOP agenda is to employ a movement strategy that instead heightens the differences between the reactionary Republicans and we who resist them. Here they have a little graph showing the movement cycle. Emotional states. See, they know exactly how to play on your emotions for this to gain momentum. I mean, that's why they're called momentum, I guess. Emotional state. So there's an enduring crisis, growing public anger. In this case, we are already in a crisis with the lockdowns, and there was already growing public anger over the destruction of the economy. But once there was a trigger event, they could use that to redirect all this anger into something else people were angry about, which was police brutality and systemic racism. But trigger event, we know what that was. Heroic phase, that's where everybody is like, now they're all getting to be heroes for the movement, right? Everybody's on board, protesting, doing all kinds of things, looting. Then there's a honeymoon where it's like, yay, we did something good. Then there's disillusionment. I think they're right about this. I mean, they know what they're talking about, right? Disillusionment, where they're like, nothing really changed. And they say that over time, with learning and reflection, then there's regrowth. I guess that could be true if you define regrowth as the Democrat Party regaining control of the federal government. So far, I just see a lot of absurdity. I mean, not with the idea of human rights, of course, and civil rights and equality, but some of the stuff that's going on now is just ridiculous. Oh, on a side note, remember the Chaz? You white people, give a black person $10. Or you won't really give up your rights and your property. I have black friends. I'm pretty sure that if I tried to give one of my black friends $10, they'd say, get the fuck out of here. What's wrong with you? It would be very, very strange. It actually strikes me as being kind of racist. It's like, oh, poor you, Like, let me give you $10. My black friends are like more educated than I am, and better off financially. It would, like, I'm Jewish, right? So it would kind of like if a German came up to me and was like, I'm so sorry about the Holocaust. Please accept this $10 as a sign of my apology. I would think, what the hell is wrong with you? Also, I saw recently another picture from the Chaz where they have black only community gardens. It's only for black people and their plant allies. It's like they just can't understand the concept of actually what we're all just people. Like, you're all just Americans. You got to stop splitting people up like that. It doesn't make any sense. And now you have segregated gardens. Actually, you're going to see that it makes a whole lot more sense once you understand how this momentum group works and what their plan is. Anyway, beyond compromise movement, first it means polarizing the issues, just as the function of a magnet or battery depends on the opposition between its positive and negative poles. It is necessary to cast issues in terms of right and wrong. Yeah, the polarization. It's always got to be like that. I notice that. Polarizing people. So I don't naturally polarize very easily. I tend to see all the grays, you know. But that's what they do, and people get really emotional. Got to pick sides. This forces people to pick a side. See, I have a problem with that. See, they've polarized this situation politically. So the public is now under the impression that if you're a Republican, you're a racist. Black Lives Matters is associated with the Democrats, so if you're not supporting the Democrats, you're not supporting Black Lives Matters, which means that you're a racist. You have to get on board with all their politics, or you're a racist. To hell with you. Because you see, if I said I'm not on board, then it's like, oh, you're a racist. No, I'm on board with what really needs to change. I'm not on board with all this crazy political stuff that they're pulling, though, you know? This forces people to pick a side. It's the opposite of searching for positions where there's broad agreement, and reassuring as it might be to emphasize common beliefs across the political spectrum. So the goal is to pit people one against the other. What a disaster. Second, it means focusing on the base. For too long, the Democratic Party has demobilized its own base only to activate it in brief moments before elections. The base consists of the core voters of the Democratic Party. Yeah, you can see how they're focusing on them to mobilize them. Definitely right before the election. By seeking positions that appeal to them, we can draw, swing, and crossover voters to us. See, you're all being played. If we face the choice between placating the Democratic Party's big money donors or appealing to a passionate grassroots supporters, we should choose the latter, the path of energy, activation, and hope. Shortly after Donald Trump's election, a group of former Democratic congressional staffers released the Indivisible Guide. They had personally witnessed the rise of the Tea Party. They had seen how it undermined the prospects for progressive change under President Obama. The Indivisible Guide examined the Tea Party's tactics, specifically the way its activists challenged Democratic members of Congress at town halls, and showed how the same methods could be used to thwart Trump. Page 20. The history of social movements teaches us that Trump can be stopped. I mean, really, their whole purpose in life right now is to take down Trump. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's real. So it means really what they're doing is they're playing people like a violin, and they're playing on people's emotions. And they're polarizing people on purpose, and they have a whole plan here. If you guys were looking for the proof, this is it. This is it right here. It's, in that sense, actually, it's actually like a massive propaganda effort. And again, you can't even say that without somebody taking it to mean that you're not on board with the fact that Black lives actually matter, which actually they do, of course. You can't say that without being put on the other side. That's part of the game. So if you're not on board with this, you're a racist. So it's like you're screwed, You got to pick sides. Wow, they really know what they're doing. Protest creates polarization. For social movements, protest is the most effective means of polarizing an issue. You know, it's like you've got to be on the side of BLM and like 100% support everything they do. Don't question anything. Don't question how do they get organized, where do they learn from, where they get their funding, nothing. Or you're a racist. Or you're on the other side. And then it's like you think that everything about BLM and everything about the movement is bad and everything about the protest is bad. I've seen my friends like polarized. Not to say that the ones who are anti, you know, the protests are racist, but they can't see the good that is in it. Because the way I see it, there is good in what's happening. There is an awakening. And the system definitely needs to change. Like, I've experienced the racism. I've seen it with my own eyes when I was working as a teacher. Maybe I could tell you about that sometime. Maybe I could tell you about it now. I was working as a teaching assistant. The teacher that I was working for, she was a racist. Well, I don't know if she realized it, but she was discriminating. And she would tell me things like, les Arabes sont tous des niaiseux, which means like, oh, the Arabs, like, they're all no good. They're always screwing around. Another teacher told me about how she would like look at all the pictures of the black students and say, oh, this one's this one's that. And she was picking out the black students. She was also classist. Like, she would say really mean things to the poor kids. She would tell me, don't bother with those kids. Like, they're never going to go anywhere. You have to let people fall through the cracks. I didn't want to be a teacher. I actually worked there for 3 months, and it was enough to make me not want to work as a teacher. I said, man, I cannot work in a system like this because it's just wrong. And I know people who work with homeless people, and they've seen firsthand how the police discriminate against minorities. So, you know, this kind of stuff has to stop. It has to go beyond that. The whole drug war and the privatized prisons that you have in the US, like, this all has to stop. It's too bad because you can't have a sane discussion. It's like it's propaganda, and they're just playing on your emotions. That polarization, that's the game, you know? And really, we need to all be in this together. We need to all be participating to make a better society. And what they're doing is they're splitting people up, you know? That's what they do. It seems like actually really unethical to me. Protest polarizes, and successful polarization moves people from neutral to taking a stand. Yeah, but you have to get on board with everything. Even those who say they disapprove of the protesters can come around to supporting the cause. It may take several protests to make someone aware of an issue. It may take several more to make them feel they must pick a side. Not everyone has to like us. You know, we don't need everyone to like our movement or approve of our tactics. The more I read this, the more uncomfortable I feel. The more like sick I feel about it. Like, the more disgusted I feel. It's like they're really playing people. And there's people that are getting hurt. There's people that are like losing their businesses, losing their lives. How much of this is really about how much Black lives matter? And how much of it is about a very dirty, sneaky way to win an election? As if the Democrats are going to solve America's problems. Anyway, they have some more tips on how to protest and what to do, but I want to show you who is behind this organization called Momentum. Momentum is a training institute and movement incubator. This is what they do. They train people for how to build movements. We are committed to teaching and learning the craft of popular movements fighting for justice. I mean, they've got this stuff down to a science. But, you know, so did Edward Bernays. I mean, if you can find a way to convince people that it's a good idea to smoke cigarettes, you can pretty much convince them of anything. And again, there's that polarization. So it's like, yes, we should all be treated equally. I agree with that. We need reforms. What else you got up your sleeve, though, you know? Because once you get on board, you have to pretty much be on board for the whole package. See, I'm not a good follower. I'd be a terrible cult member, you know? And they know, like, psychology, and they know how to exploit that. Escalation, active popular support, absorption. Don't question anything, or you become the enemy. It's like with everything else. You can't think for yourself. Previous participants in Momentum trainings come from organizations doing some of the most important movement building in the US, and BLM is one of them. But if you go back to looking at this document, they said that, like, their number one priority was to ruin Trump and get rid of the Republicans. That's just very political. And last but not least, what about the beautiful Candace Owens, who suddenly became the loudest voice on the far right. Yes, very suddenly. In less than a year, she goes from being on YouTube to, quote, the new darling of President Donald Trump. This was in 2018. Since then, things got stranger and more outrageous. And nowadays, she's eloquently talking so much shit that you have to wonder if she's doing it on purpose. And you know, maybe she is. Don't you think it's a bit odd that just a couple of years before she became the Republican Party's darling, she was running an anti-Trump website? In 2015, she was the CEO of Degree 180, a website that specialized in Trump bashing. And all of a sudden, she herself made a 180 and became his biggest supporter. After what we just read, I would consider that maybe she's in on it. Maybe she's not the ultimate Republican. She's a plant, and it's her job to help polarize people. It certainly looks like she had help getting where she is now. That's the agenda, is to polarize you as much as possible. And you're not going to come up with solutions until you start working together, you know. As far as I'm concerned, that polarization is part of the problem. It's not the solution. Anyhow, let me know what you think. Thank you for liking this video. Thanks again for your support on Patreon. Don't forget to check out the links for the pouches and the MREs, which we may need. And God bless you guys. Thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.